What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and today I'm going to be answering the question, what do I do if I'm skinny fat? Or essentially, should I bulk or should I cut? Now I get asked this question so many times in a week, and to be honest, there's not a one size fits all answer. What I'm going to do instead in this video is give you some key things to consider so you can make that decision for yourself, and also give you some recommendations as to what I would do if I was skinny fat. So let's start with some definitions. What do we mean by a person that is skinny fat? Someone that is skinny fat is a person with a low level of muscle mass who hasn't got that much definition either. Basically in no man's land. The reason why deciding what to do can be so difficult is because it's less obvious when you're in between. If someone has a high level of body fat, they don't need a genius to tell them what they need to do, whether to bulk or to cut fat. If someone is really skinny and has no muscle, again, it's quite obvious what they need to do. Being skinny fat, it's not so obvious what the best plan of action is. So traditional bulking and cutting are bodybuilding phrases. What we mean by bulking is increasing your calories with a hope to build more muscle mass. When we refer to cutting, we're talking about reducing your calories so that you can lose body fat. Now, although we see extremes of these all over social media, the essence of what they are, building muscle and losing fat, is pretty much what everybody aims for. When a person says they want to be toned, they're inadvertently thinking of one or both of these things. So now we've cleared that up, what are the key considerations for a person that is skinny fat? Now the first consideration is, what is your goal? Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to lose body fat? Do you want to get stronger? Now when you ask a person this question, most people's answer is they would like to do both. They would like to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Now we know from the science that this is possible in a few scenarios, but ultimately if you are going to achieve the best results and get to your goal as efficiently as possible, you do need to commit to one goal. Also, there are some overlap between these goals. For example, you can lose fat and get stronger, or build muscle and get stronger, but you need to commit to one goal. And that kind of leads me on to my next point, but how comfortable are you with your current level of body fat? Now this is such an important question. Are you currently at a body fat where you can afford to gain a few pounds of fat? If you are not, then a bulk would not be advisable. Simply because with the best will in the world, a bulk done properly, even if it's lean, will result in a few pounds of fat gained. You can try and track your calories to the last calorie, but essentially if you are in a surplus, you can't control whether you gain fat or not. You can minimize the amount of fat you gain by a good strategy, but you can't eliminate it. If you're someone whose mind has not been warped by social media and you can afford to gain a few pounds of fat, then you might want to consider a bulk. And the final consideration is your training experience. Are you a beginner, intermediate, or advanced? I would see a beginner as a person with 2 years of training experience. Intermediate if you've got around 3 or 4 years of training experience, and advanced if you have 5 or more years of training experience. To be clear, when I say training experience, I'm speaking about proper, consistent training experience where your training is good, your nutrition is good, and you're recovering properly. If you're someone who's on and off with their training and nutrition, then these windows of time can get much larger. But ultimately, if you're a beginner, someone who's new to training, you can actually build muscle and lose fat at the same time. While it's more efficient to commit to a goal, so the example I give is, 10 out of 10 muscle building, 10 out of 10 fat loss, you could probably achieve a 7 out of 10 at the same time. Once you get deeper into your training journey, you need to commit to one goal, and there are very rare scenarios where you can do both at the same time. Not efficiently anyway. So hopefully now you've considered your goal, and you've considered how comfortable you are with your current level of body fat, and also determined whether you are a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Let's go on to my recommendations. The first thing I'd recommend is building your base. What I mean by that is building a decent foundation of muscle. Often when we see someone on social media who is lean, we often forget that the reason they actually look good is because they have a decent level of muscle mass. Nobody looks at a marathon runner who is scrawny and says they want to look like them. That's why I say if you're skinny, your abs don't really count. In school, there were so many people who never did any exercise but just came from the womb skinny and they had abs. It's not an achievement, you were born with them, you didn't work for them. The only reason people aspire to have abs and like the way they look is because abs usually sit on physiques that have other body parts developed. Aesthetic, lean physiques with a decent level of muscle mass. So in reality, your body fat percentage is a secondary consideration. If you don't have the muscle to go with it, it doesn't really matter what your body fat is. The amount of times a person comes to me and tells me they want to lean down and they don't have anything to cut into. So when we lean down, they don't like what they see. Essentially, they haven't built their frame. So don't get swept up by the fitness influencer on social media who looks really lean with abs. Don't forget, the reason they look good is because of their muscle mass. So build your base. The next recommendation, if you want to change your shape, is be prepared to gain body fat. Now this is really unpopular for two reasons. Firstly, we're in an obesity crisis. And secondly, a lot of people who have lost body fat and come from a place where they were heavier struggle with the idea of gaining fat. But it has to be said, if you want to change your shape, that has more to do with muscle than fat. If you want to reveal what you have underneath, then losing body fat becomes important. But if you haven't built your shape underneath, in 99% of cases, when you do lean down, you're going to be disappointed. By increasing your calories and committing to a bulk, it's ideal to think you will gain no body fat, but almost impossible for you to gain no body fat. Now, as I said, some fat gain is inevitable, but getting fat doesn't need to be. You don't need a huge calorie surplus in order to build muscle. So for the vast majority of people, 100 to 400 calories over your maintenance should allow you to build muscle optimally and minimize fat gain. And the final recommendation is to not compare yourself to fitness influencers on steroids. Because there are so many fitness influencers on steroids now sporting super lean physiques all the time, you typically go to the top of your TikTok or Instagram algorithm and these are the physiques that you see. We naturally compare ourselves, and sometimes some people even call themselves skinny fat when they're around like 15 or 16%, which is perfectly healthy and actually a decent level of body fat. So firstly, stop comparing yourself to people that are enhanced, and secondly, remember that 99% of physiques you see, whether enhanced or not, needed to go through the same bulking phase to change their physique. They had to build their level of muscle mass so that staying leaner became easier. So if you are constantly stuck in this state of cutting, you're going to be in between and you're not really going to see improvements in muscle and strength. So hopefully you're in a better place to make the decision about what to do if you're skinny fat. On my journey, I had to go through a phase of being skinny fat when I lost all the weight, and I had to navigate out of it, and this is how I did it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this, and I'll see you again soon.